For the Upper Hutt Shire Council on the 15th of August 2025. I'll call this meeting open at 9 a.m. And we'll go through first, in absence of the general manager, we've got Director of Finance, or give you promotion, Mr. Phelps for Finance, and have we got any applications for a video for those Phelps?
No,
Any apologies there?
we have one apology from Councillor Stoltz.
Got a mover on the apology, move Councillor Shields, second Councillor Fraser, all those in favour. Nice to have it.
With the apology, we'll have the mayor in attendance, who will have voting rights as well.
Mayor. Disclosures of interest.
Neil Steve, Mr. Chair.
Any public participation? I see one in the gallery.
Neil Steve, Mr. Chair.
And there being no public participation, we'll just move into the business items for today, please, Mr. Phelps.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the first meeting of the new financial year, so there's pretty limited financial summary and investment report information coming through. Overall, we'll just go through quickly with the summary on page 3 there. So, as I mentioned, first month of the new financial year, we've got a positive variance of 292,000. The main movers in regards to that are quite limited. There's with the operating revenue on page 4, we're up by about 295. Pretty well just with the Early Learning Centre, its revenue's up by 77, so we've had good attendance there. So we're looking at that and seeing whether or not that will hold through the whole year. So it'll be interesting to see how that tracks over the first quarter coming through. Waste management, sewer and water, I should say. They're all above at the moment based on annual access charges. So minor increases there across the board, but in comparison to the overall revenue streams for them.
Sorry, preempting, I know, but I am just going to quickly circle back to the family daycare centre. Obviously, that's been in the news recently. Our compliance in that space, is there any ongoing reviews coming forth with the issues that we've seen down in Sydney?
Overall, we continue to look at reviews of the operation within capacity compliance regulation for the childcare, and effectively our childcare situation is very healthy and haven't got any issues as depicted by other childcare agencies down in Sydney area. Will we continue review? We go through our normal checks, police checks and so forth in regards to a lot of our new staff members, and obviously we'll review the ongoing staff members as well. Moving into our non-operating revenue there, it's down by about 55 at the moment. Our very first year, we've got sort of movements of time from last year into this year, so we'll continue to monitor that over the next first quarter. Our actual operating expenditure is pretty consistent overall, relatively nothing much changing on the first month of the budget year, so nothing much happening there. And our capital expenditure is very similar. It's very close to budget overall. The movers in there are a lot of projects that have rolled over into the new financial year, and ones that are starting to get traction again to start up with processes coming through. So you've got a number of items there. The Marumna Youth Centre, we thought it could be finished by the end of June. It just rolled over into July, so it's totally grant funded, so we'll bring it back for that coming through the next couple of months once it's finalised. The Bellman Hangar is lower by 42. It's just timing of end of month invoicing. The Causeway range is continuing to go quicker than what we thought, so that's quite good. So it's up a little bit in cost, but it's on budget coming through. And our CBD works over in Merriwall. We anticipate that to happen by the end of last year, and we just had a couple of late bills coming in July, so, and that's approval finalising that CBD area over there, the activation area. Barrington Forest Slip on page 5, bit lower than budget by about 30,000. We finished that project in front of budget, which has been quite pleasing. That works is now complete. Obviously we have a lot of other flood work damage up on the tops there, but that'll be covered by flood works damage coming through. Water main renewals lower by 50,000, and our Glenbourne pipeline upgrade is lower by 25,000. So as you can see, there's not much movements overall in the first month, but we've got a positive variance budget of 292,000.
Just on the expenditure, so clarification around the youth centre, higher budget 50,000, but that is all fully in grant funding.
Correct.
We're not drawing any funds elsewhere, and CBD works, budget for 50k, so I wasn't quick enough to look through the restricted assets here, but that's all drawn out of that activation fund that was in restricted assets, and we are good with that.
We're on budget with that as well. So, yep.
And I will comment that about the restricted assets. Thank you.
Yep. So both of those projects that are overrunning to this year will have funds coming through the restricted asset or grant funding attached to it. Moving into the budget position, obviously there's no change. We don't do any votes or surrenders in the very first month until we get some sort of trends happening and coming through. Our bank funds has remained quite buoyant with where we were at the end of the year. As you can tell on the graph, we're going to go through that shortly. We're always going to have a drop off into July with a lot of our end of year creditors being paid. And in the current year, you'll note that it is a steep decline coming through. So one reason for that is a lot of our major projects have now been finished. So that's quite pleasing. So you won't see the big drops away in regards to costings coming through. Our external loans is around the same amount as what we've got in the bank at the moment. So it's 27 million. Internal loans, we're going through doing our year-end processing at the moment. First indication looking at it that we haven't really had to draw down on those loans come the end of the year. We're very light ball at the moment, so we'll finalise that. We're moving into the July and August period is when our cash flow is a bit limited based on our rating levying. So overall our rating levying will come in to like into August. And cover a lot of those costs. And the issue that will be drawn out slightly in that internal loan. However, we continue to monitor that coming through, but I don't think it'll be to the extent of the $6 million, which we've got put aside and approved by the Office of Local Government. So that's quite pleasing, and we'll progress through that, hopefully not utilise as much of that loan as what we anticipate, which is quite pleasing overall. It's just more or less a backstop coming through. Our restricted assets schedule on page, where we've got on there, page 6, we've gone through another draft initial startup of our restricted assets coming through. The big thing that you notice from the 25 year down to the 26 year is a lot of our grants in advance have disappeared. So we have our external restrictions have reduced based on that, which is quite pleasing, and we're getting back into some sort of normality now in regards to a lot of our grant funding coming through. Capital expenditure report, as you can see there, with no votes, it's still sitting around that $34 million mark as adopted in our Depot. Today we spent about 2%. So the first month's always very, very light. Obviously with end of year creditors coming through, going back into the 25 year. So down 2% overall, which is about $680,000 worth of work. Just moving into our schedules there from page 9 through to 12. As mentioned, the overall no votes coming through, and it's just to give you an idea of the service areas, which are pretty well all coming in line, except for those ones that we mentioned in the summary pages initially. Moving on to our bank side of things, and this is where I've mentioned about that graph. There's not, as you can see from the June to July 23, June to July 24, and June to July 25, the drop off isn't as significant as what it has been in those previous years. So we'll get a stagnated position coming through, which is not pretty pleasing. Overall, our investments held at the moment, we still have all our investments sitting above the 4% mark, even with the interest rates being dropped recently. So we've got still a couple in there at the 5% mark, which is quite pleasing. So overall, not too bad. As mentioned with the loans, just to give you an idea of where they sit at the moment, and they're reducing as we repay those loans down by about $2 million a year. So coming the end of this financial year, that loan facilities should be down to around that 25 to 24.5 million mark. Pretty pleasing. And then moving into our restricted assets area, no votes or surrenders coming through. So as mentioned, our external restrictions is sitting around that 26.2 mark, which is where we started off. And effectively, we've got that $26 million mark at the end of June, so that's been quite pleasing as well. And then the final page there we do have is our capital works summary, which more or less highlights all our capital works coming through on a summary basis, so you can look at each individual projects as and where they actually sit from a budgetary point of view. And overall, as you can tell by on page 30, the variation is only $2,000 overall today. Any questions, Chair?
Just in restricted assets there, on roads and bridges, resale program, 280,000. That means we've got 280,000 carried forward in the rest year, doesn't it? Yeah. So that will mean we'll see an expansion of that work.
Yeah, we can do that, and also that resale program coming through. That those funds can be utilised for pay contributions to any grant funding we might achieve as well, which might enhance some construction work, reconstruction work.
Councils, the question requirements.
Back to financial assistance grants that we announced, when are we expecting to receive them? Do we have an idea of when we're expecting to receive them?
People we received those right at the end of June last year, the 50%, and we get the 50% on a quarterly basis, August, November, February and May. And then we'll wait again until next year and see whether or not we actually do get any more prepayments from the year before. We have seen a bit of a trend in the last 3 years where it's gone from 100 down to 85, down to 50. It's quite possible that the government is trying to push them back to a situation where it might be only 25% next year. So we've got to be mindful of that.
Sorry, can you just clarify that? So what are you saying is that the government, so in this last year in financial assistance grants, they paid 50% at the beginning of the financial year. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So
and then the remainder 50% was split over the remaining quarters.
Through you, Mr. Chair. At the end of June 25, the government's been pretty well in the process of paying in advance your financial assistance grants for the next financial year. So for the June 25 year, we received 50% of our financial assistance grants for 25-26 in advance before the end of the financial year ended. So they've been doing that for the last 8 years. So they've been providing cash flow upfront coming through for operations coming through into the next financial year. What then, effectively from that, they will pay the rest of that non-prepaid amount over the course of the next financial year, which is the 25-26 year. in history, they started off doing around 50%. That's when they first initially started about 8 years ago. And they kept that process coming through for probably 5 years. And then all of a sudden, when COVID hit, they brought forward 100% of that financial assistance in advance, financial assistance grants in advance. They brought that through with 100%. They're trying to pare that back now. They brought it back to 85% for the 24-25 year. So they paid that for the 23-24 year. And for the last year, it was only 50%. And the indications are that they're trying to reduce that down further so that they will then go back into a cycle where they'll pay in the year that it actually relates to. Yeah. It's more or less trying to get that's funding to a lot of councils upfront. That's more or less what they were doing it for.
In your experience, our current business cycles, that think that the funding agency is probably giving everybody an advantage going forward in sustainability. Your funding flows, do we have capacity to comfortably work with those cash flows? Or that facility that we had, is a part of that problem?
The internal loan facility you made, yes. So that's pretty well just to provide us comfort until such time as we receive all our government grants in advance. Our government grants that are outstanding at this point in time, at the end of June 25, which was quite substantial. It was still about $4 million in actual capital funding grants. And also we had a lot of flood work damage, which also had a lot of your debtors outstanding at the end of the current financial year. So with those received, our financial position is quite steady coming through. The internal loan was predominantly obtained as a comfort side of things, so that we wouldn't breach any of the Office of Local Government regulations or local government regulations. So that was pretty well put in place for that purpose while we finalise a lot of our major capital works projects, and with 358 being the last real major capital work project that we have got on the books. But it's also there for assistance towards that flood damage works that we actually are doing, which we can only claim when we've actually physically done the work. So we have to actually spend the money upfront before we claim it back. So it's a bit of a comfort overdraft effectively at that for that purpose as well.
And just on the grants and events, you were saying that they're likely to peel that back. Is the rhythm of our operations concurrent with that mindset that we're going to receive our finances later, or do we need to change our operational stance?
Through Mr. Chair, with our Depop going forward, we've actually put in there that we're going to receive another 50%. We want to get 50% in advance, year on year, coming through. When that pairs back, obviously, we'll make adjustments in the future Depops. But we are comfortable, and we know that cash flow trend coming through. And that's why we have to do restricted assets, so that we do identify that money is in advance for next year.
Councillors, have we heard anything further? They're not being any more. Are we happy to move recommendations as stated, 1 through 6? Moved. Councillor Paulson, second. Councillor Seals, all those in favour? Aye. The ayes have it. We'll move forward to the property update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just walking through the properties, pretty stable from the last report that we got in to the end of June. Just take it as read coming through, unless there's any questions in regards to a lot of the position of our property portfolio at this point in time.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, Wayne, an update on Sherman Street into the doctor surgery. What's the latest on that?
Yes, through Mr. Chair, we've obtaining a DA for demolition of the of the building down there. It has got a bit of a heritage listing attached to it, so that's been a bit of a conundrum, I suppose, coming through. However, we're more or less just putting that in place, and then we'll be looking at our options in regards to whether or not that we'll just dispose of that land with that DA attached to it.
Yeah, always a curiosity, the heritage listing on some, but I believe it's more a zonal issue rather than have an heritage issue on itself. Is that correct?
But I take that on notice to planning guys to give a firm section on that.
Mr. Chair, that's got heritage, every house in Numalla's heritage.
I'll take that as a comment. Thank you. All right, we've got to move up to the property update. Councillor Fraser, seconded. Councillor Shields, all those in favour? Yeah, let's have it. Now going forward with the grant report. And there appears to be a little bit more action here. Mr. Phelps, if you run us through it.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we've had one successful grant application come through, which is 29,000 there, which is quite pleasing. We are putting a little bit of money towards that, which is about $30,000. But that provides an inclusive amenities down at pretty well basketball course, I believe. So that will be quite pleasing. We have a number of other grants submitted, which we're waiting for response in regards to. So we'll be just sitting and waiting for those. And we've got a number of opportunities that are now coming out open in regards to on page 39 there. So we're working through a number of those as we see fit to submit those applications.
Just a comment through, Mr. Chair, great to see Rosedale Complex through King of the Ranges getting their $50,000 grant. That's just a proof in the pudding. If you keep with it, keep putting grants in, and you will get some reward at the end.
Perhaps an update on Government Place grant application there and what the timeline was.
Through you, Mr. Chair, pretty well that it's just sitting waiting an outcome. There's no real definition of the timeline for that. We'll just receive notification when it actually has been assessed.
Yeah.
It's the same evolution we go through every, 12 months, right? Or,
Effectively.
yeah, and that's pretty much expecting the same result.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no doubt. Yeah, unfortunately. However, we do consider the grants in the hope that they will come through to fruition.
It's a cardinal virtue, so
Yeah. Slight pause.
Thank you for filling it. All right, there being any more questions or comments on grants? Not being any, I will move it and notes the report. Move Councillor Fraser, second Councillor Shield, all those in favour? The ayes have it. Move forward requests for donations.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we've got two new applications and one which we have brought through at the last meeting, which went up through council in regards to the West Lake Rescue Helicopter Service. So that now has been approved, obviously. That's just to make that to the Corporate Services Committee. Two new ones, which is effectively Castless Rodeo and the Scone Arts and Craft. Both applications have been successful. And we'll be providing a donation for those two requests.
That's pleasing, and I think that's working as one could hope that yeah we can go back to council and discuss these issues. I think that's important. So there being any questions, councillor Fraser?
Probably it may not be appropriate for this particular section, but I noticed there was an offer of grants went out for cultural purposes or programs. What's what is that? Is that open to? Is cultural include sporting applications, or just unclear about who's applying for those?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, every year we provide about $14,000 or $15,000 for a lot of the associations for art and cultural side of things, for projects that they want to entertain. They all supply a application submission back, and then they're assessed by the community services team. And then ultimately, the applications we get is well and truly above 15,000. So we need to then look at pairing some of those back and see which ones will be successful or not successful. It's open to approval everyone. So the sporting body can, if they have a project, they can apply for it. But they'll be looked at with criteria in mind and whether or not it's a worthwhile project for the fund.
Question, councillor Fraser, and oversight over that, that comes from community services, and that's the oversight. Correct.
And ultimately, through the chair, those applications and the approval of those fundings go back to the council. So you'll have a report that goes back up to council once the application period is finished to review and have the right to change any of those when they come through.
All right, move councillor Shields, second councillor Fraser, all those in favour? The ayes have it. No sponsors, previous questions. Sure, we've read through those. Move up. Move to councillor Bolton, seconded. Councillor Fraser, all those in favour? That being the end of the proceedings there, have I got anything in general business? Any councillors? Being I do have something myself. We discussed, and I've had discussions through the week, and councillor Director Infrastructure here. Employment and getting staff, especially in operators, it seems to be such a problematic space. I don't know what we're doing in that space, and if I put it down to the question, I know there was a staff survey put out last year. I haven't seen the results of that, but I'd like to see that perhaps tabled in here. We could put that down, because I think we probably need a little bit of oversight there from a governance level to greater understand what's happening in that employment space. Because I can see it being a major issue if we can't get bumps in seats in those very important machines. So I think as councillors we need to be on top of that and make sure that we're getting that major part of our work's done.
Yeah, no, through the chair, we take that on notice and come back with a response for that. A lot of it does come down to the workforce management plan, which council did adopt in the end of June. So we'll go through that process. We'll provide a response for you.
What's the situation now? The difficulty is getting these employees in the first place, and the difficulty we face, I assume, is the same difficulty we face with so many skilled operator positions, is that the mines are far more attractive financially for people working. Now, if that's the case, the only way we are going to attract people to fill these operator positions is by offering more attractive salaries. Is there capacity to do that, firstly in the budget, and secondly, are we able to do that in terms of local government awards? Because I think I would imagine that to fill these positions, we're going to have to offer above or well above award wages. Do we have capacity to do that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, it is a conundrum. Obviously the mines will take a lot of, folks in regards to salaries, which we can't compete with, obviously. We can provide market appraisals on salaries, but we can't get anywhere close to what the mines are. So that's how we can get above the actual, local government award itself by doing a market component. Overall, it's a very difficult thing. It's whether or not we can train our staff up internally to provide them with tickets that will do it. But a lot of our staffing will come back to whether it'll be a work-life balance. And that's really what we can offer from a Shire perspective, is that a lot of these guys who are on shift work get sick of the shift work, they don't want to work that anymore, and they'll come and work a Monday to Friday role. So we can only gather from that. So but it is a difficult thing, but internally training up staff may be a way that we can have better qualified staffing who are happy with with the Shire's environment, to actually undertake those works. And it could be a lot of trainees, apprentices as well, trying to grow from below and providing experience for those younger folks to come through and getting entrenched within council way of life.
I did notice from one of the early report that came across the firing line, that we have a significantly ageing population amongst the workforce for council. Is there, I assume there is, but the application of myself and anyone else who happens to be while away Friday morning watching this. What is there an active process that's engaging to attract younger participants in our workforce?
Yes, there is. We have a lot of apprenticeships and traineeships and so forth coming through. But unfortunately, we do have an ageing workforce, and that's identified in the workforce management plan coming through. We are engaged in trying to attract a more younger crowd to the Shire. But again, that'll come back to growing staff within and actually employing a lot of trainees and apprentices on board as well.
Director of Infrastructure.
For the chair, really good questions, Councillor Fraser. Just to add to what finance manager mentioned. Yes, there's multiple problems or external and internal factors contributing to that. Just for an example, we've got around 17 vacancies just in the Scone Works Delivery team, which is anywhere between operators to technical officers. This is the vacancies. Now, yes, the part of the issue is we can't compete with the mines, and they pretty much pay nearly double of what we are offering to our staff. To answer your question on whether we can do it under the award, we can increase it. That will have a ripple effect on the staff that are already here. Everyone would want more. Plus, under the award, there's certain limitations on what we can and what we can't. And there is aging staff workforce, especially the operators, and they may get sick, or they may be on long service leave. There's other operational issues where they don't have the skills to do multiple plant and equipment. Plus, with all these other maintenance and flood works that we are doing, there's not much time to even train or mentor or handle that. So we are trying to keep on track on all our maintenance and capital programs. If you would have noted from the last couple of years, we are on track and we have achieved what we have done, but mainly through contractors support or getting external support or funding through the or negotiating with the external agencies and getting funding for that. So we still try to stick to the budget or try to get more external funding to do that. In terms of attracting, so there's two parts to attracting the younger staff. One is, yes, as Ryan mentioned, we can look at the opportunities to upskill our staff. And again, it comes down to the interest and what staff want to do. Or the second part is the retaining. We do attract a lot of apprentices and trainees, But I think in recent times, it's becoming difficult. We are getting fully funded roles, but it's still getting difficult to attract them. The second part to that is retaining them. They stay with us and they learn all these trades and they move on to the mines and other things. So there's a lot of operational issues, around that, and we are trying to manage and balance what we can with our, financial constraints and the resource availability and the priorities, competing priorities, and try and deliver the best.
Are we actually, are we doing, are we just sort of sitting back and hoping that this resolves itself? Is there an active program of recruitment of new staff? I mean, the thing that concerns me is that the reliance on contractors will necessarily increase the cost component of the operator, so the operating component of the cost of operating, say, graders by 20 to 30% just on the cost of labour. And the more we go down that path, the greater our costs are going to increase.
So the chair, yes, yes, to an extent, it will increase the cost of delivering works. Now, what we are trying to do around that is, one thing is, for any flood works related claims, they pay the actuals of how much it's costing us, so that cost will be absorbed in that. The other thing is we use direct contractors. They are much cheaper than packaging it and, tendering it, and that will come back 30-40% higher than what we can do it for. So we try and use direct contractors, and we keep a really close monitoring of what they're doing. So we're trying to get more value out of it and improve the cost. And at the same time, there's also lesser use of our plant and equipment because we don't have the operators, and the plant cost or the maintenance cost for that, there's partial savings in there because of not getting used, but at the same time, the utilization is another issue. Whether so, like I said, there's multiple things that contributes to it. What we also see is a trend of when we advertise plant operator positions in the past, and we've had it open for as long as we can to see if we can fill anyone. We do get an inflow of applicants, especially from the workforce thing, because they don't want to sit on their settling payments or something. And let's say we get 30 applicants, and this is a real example. When we try to interview, only 3 will pick the call, and none of them will turn up for interview. So we have had the situation, or we are having the situation where it's really hard to attract them. At the same time, if I look from the other perspective, the people who are shift workers in the mines and who are who have kind of pretty much settled their financial things, they come as really good workforce for us, and they stay with us for longer. And we've had success in employing those kind of people who turn out to be really good operators or in the technical roles as well. So there is opportunity in that as well.
Thank you, Director. I think that is the premise of my question. Is the simple discussion is about money. But my perception, and I speak with quite a few operators in that space, and quite a few from the mines, quite a few from, well, I don't speak for anybody from gas. Never bump into them. But it's an interesting one. You talk about training the young ones, and they go out to the mines. I think there's a life cycle of operators where the natural life cycle is you go chasing money. So you're naturally going to go to the mines. Once you have a family, lifestyle changes and you start looking at lifestyle options. Now, mines have a lifestyle roster, which is anti-lifestyle. And that's when those employees start looking back. So the premise of my question is about what is council's culture? Is it an enticing place for those people that want to bump back into something meaningful, something they can be with friends and add community value? Are we offering that space for them? It's not necessarily about the finances. We have to be competitive to some degree. People have to eat. But I'd like to know that we're doing our best to make that space comfortable for those people who want to come back into. Because and certainly we're going to see workforce changes in the mining area over the next 10 to 20 years. We want to make sure that we're building an organisation here that is attractive for those staff. So that would be my considerations there if we can have that discussion further. Now I've filled up a little bit of extra space here, but we did charge through it. Thank you, Mr. Phelps. There being anything else for the day? Thank you, councillors. Thank you, director and staff. Full meeting closed today at 9:40. Thank you all and have a good weekend.